Hello and welcome to CNBC TV 18 special. I'm joined by the man who took over one of the most unenviable tasks in the government to reform what many saw was increasingly becoming a moribund Indian Railways. I'm joined by the indefatigable Minister of Rail, Mr. Suresh Prabhu. Mr. Prabhu, thank you so very much for speaking with CNBC TV 18. So one big focus area of your tenure so far has been on making investments. You have said that for long the Railway Ministry was gripped in this cycle of underinvestments that affected quality of services, that affected your ability to raise fares and so on and so forth. You have earmarked about 8.5 lakh crore rupees to be invested over the next 5 years. Can you give us a sense of how much of this 8.5 lakh crore debt would have to be serviced by you? Because we understand a significant chunk of that will come through budgetary allocation. So how much of this 8.5 lakh crore would you have to service?
This is firstly, the station development in that 8.5 lakh crores already. We're talking about station development which will take about 1,50,000 crores. All the 400 stations come true. So this is one. Secondly, the budgetary support which is already about 40,000-50,000 crores. So in 5 years it become 2.5 lakh crores. Then there is a India Infrastructure Development Fund which the government of India is creating, and already with 50% of that at least the railway will draw, because the most of investment that is going to happen in the next 5 years will be from that bond. Then tax-free bond. So if you really look at internal accruals, so I think the amount of loan will not be very significant. So already LIC has given 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh. We'll take from multilateral agencies, which will be again something little more than that. But over a period of time, and that too we'll have to repay in the next 30-40 years, and that too at a very concessional rate of interest. And that is what is the advantage. Now coming to your point about investments.
Yes.
People talk about new stations. How do you get it without investment? You want safety. What is safety? The track renewal, rail overbridges, signaling, coaches needs investment.
Yes.
Then you talk about capacity addition, because all the tracks are suffering from overuse. They are using at 150% in some places. How do you decongest it without investment? So you have to need investment for that. You need good rolling stock, needs investment. You need customer service. You want the better services to be given, escalators, whatever, which you are doing anyway.
Yes.
All that needs money. So finally, people don't realize that money, without money, so if the focus is not investment, nothing will happen.
Yes.
And if you want investment, without money you cannot make investment.
Yes.
So it has, then only you talk about money, investment, and you don't have project implementation, will not work. So it is a very complex issues which we are trying to combine all together. And I am trying to tell you, in the first 4 months, 79 budget announcements have been fully implemented. All the project reports that are going to be 1 lakh crore projects, we are going to implement in the next one. We have to prepare, begin from the scratch.
Right.
We have to prepare detailed project report, technical, commercial, financial, administrative issues rolled into one.
Right.
Very complex exercise.
Absolutely.
We did that in the last few months. We are already gearing up for that. All the general managers have been empowered, given powers for estimation, pure powers for deciding tender. It's a mammoth task.
It is.
And you can just imagine, even a corporate body, which we think private sector, you think in such a short time you could do such a mammoth thing? This is something which is feasible, and also following the governance system that we need to follow. So this we are done.
Mr. Prabhu, you are a chartered accountant by profession, and soon after you've taken over, now you've come up with a system of a quarterly sort of sharing of the financial data. And we understand, sir, that in the first quarter so far in 2015, 2016, your total earnings have gone up by 14.5% vis-a-vis the previous year's fiscal. What do you attribute this shoot up in earnings? Has the dip in oil prices got something to do with it?
See, the earnings will have nothing to do with oil price dipping. That's the expenditure side. But what we are really saying is that this is something what has happened in first quarter may not happen in the second quarter. Second quarter may not be as good. Because ultimately, where do you get the earnings from? Or 2/3 of the earning come from freight. So the freight, unless we have a movement of commodities of a scale which is completely external to the railways, we are ready to handle. We are geared up the entire system. So in the second quarter, I don't know how much earnings we'll get, because that is something which we are really a risk factor for us. But that does not affect us, because over a period of time, over a year period of time, because it's a lean period anyway. The second quarter is a lean quarter. The third quarter will be the better quarter. Fourth quarter will be still better quarter, because normally the freight growth comes in September to December, September to March. So we'll wait for that 6 months to happen. But we are very sure that over a period of time, we have a challenge of getting cargo.
Right.
We are getting because unless the others move the cargo, railway cannot do anything about it.
Yes.
We are only a service provider. So unless somebody comes and gives us the cargo, we are doing marketing. We are first time unprecedented action has happened to get cargo.
Yes. And we'll come to that. So we understand that you've taken up some innovative ways to address that problem. But before we get there, so far in this first quarter, your targets for new lines, gauge conversion, electrification, track renewals, you've exceeded that. Are we now given to understand that the targets you had set in your railway budget speech, many of those targets we are well on track to achieving before you present your next budget next year?
I think capital expenditure, I think we should be able to do that. On the revenue side, which, as I said, these are external to railways. Unless there's a demand from coal, there's a demand for cement, there's a demand for steel, there's a demand for movement of raw material like iron ore or something. If that doesn't increase, we cannot handle that. So that increase has to happen in those sectors. So therefore it is completely external to railways. See, I have no control over that externality. Yes,
absolutely. Yesterday, sir, the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said that the railways now need to start making more investments. You have lined up an investment plan for this year of about 1.1 lakh crore rupees. How much of that investment has already been put to use?
But that is unfortunately people don't understand. How can you put money into, that's why I'm talking about project report. If the project report is not passed by the cabinet, how can we spend that money?
Absolutely.
So that is one part. But still I will tell you, this is very significant. That's why I'm telling you the quarterly, 130-140% of the quarter we already spent. So that's the amount. But additionally, 82,000 crore worth of dedicated freight corridor is almost 16-17,000 crores worth of projects the tenders have been sanctioned in the last 6 months. And more are coming in the next 6 months. So that is something additionality. Plus we have sanctioned projects for doubling, for tripling in addition to this. Plus the state government PSUs, PSU joint ventures, all of that will add to another, then port connectivity. All of that will be at least 15-20,000 crores of project will come into play.
Right. So when you took over, the railways were in the midst of, you said that it's like a patient in an ICU. It was hit by falling productivity. There was of course a financial crisis, rising cost of operations and lower operating ratio. You've said that your operating ratio for 2014-2015 was around 91.3%. That's being disputed right now by the Dinesh Trivedi panel. We may quibble.
I'll tell you, this is the actual number of this is something which is now final figure of our operating ratio, which is far better than what I had said in the revised estimate. So this is something which is a real number. You know what is the operating ratio now? And this is something which is extremely interesting, is that our operating ratio currently is 91.3%, an improvement over the budget target of 92.5%. This is for the first time in the last 7 years, ORS surpassed the budget target. First time.
Yes.
This is 14-15.
Yes. That's a remarkable sort of turnaround in terms of what you
had originally
projected.
No, this is not project, it's a real one.
This is your real what you've achieved in 2014-2015. So it's a tough job. I keep coming back to it because as for international, what is acceptable OR is somewhere between 75 and 80%. Over the next 5 years, you have that medium-term target of investing 8.5 lakh crore rupees. Once those investments are made, once you sort of start reaping the benefits, can you give us an estimate how much do you think your OR would be in the range of
that, honestly. And I don't know what is the international norm, where do you get it from, because you must compare oranges with oranges and apples with apples. See, India, the large amount of money that should have been borne by the main budget cannot be borne for various reasons. Now, therefore, the cost of those operations are borne by the railways. Second unique problem is more than 50-55% of the cost of the budget is on salaries. So that and pension. So, this is a very unique situation. And therefore, there is hardly any leeway. So, only way we can do it is by increasing volume, by creating more capacity, by getting more transportation to come to something from road to railways. But all that will happen, cannot happen only commercially. Freight to roll can happen only when augmentation of capacity. That's why dedicated freight corridor we are giving so much of importance. For that doubling, tripling I am giving so much of importance. For that only I am giving importance to safety, because people come and travel, then they must be safe travel. So all of this is happening at the same time.
Yes. One big initiative of yours, Mr. Prabhu, was to depoliticize Railway Ministry, and you've gone and stitched 17 joint ventures with state governments. Give us a sense, what has been the response like? Because the first time you are making them an equal stakeholder as far as the revamp of railway stations and in general railways is concerned. What's been the response like by some of the governments?
You know, they are thrilled about it. See, this is something which is unprecedented. This is historical. Our Prime Minister's vision of cooperative federalism is actually happening in the reality in this case. We are getting state governments as partners. They don't have to come and make petitions at a time of making budget to the Railway Minister. Railway Minister will be very happy because Chief Ministers are coming and making... But it's not the right way. The states are our partners. They are not petitioners. They have to work with them as close comrades. So what we are doing is this particular model which is going to transform the railways completely. Along with that, so this is one major step. Along with that, we are signing MOU, signing agreement, executing project with PSU, like coal, steel, their money, our idea. So they get evacuation, we get railway lines as well as revenue without putting money. We are doing port connectivity, in which private sector invests money and we get the revenue. 500 crore project of revenue has started coming to us only because of port connectivity from Gandhiram to the other port. So just imagine the benefit like this. So all of these people are very excited, very thrilled. We have to implement it in spirit. So this is one. Secondly, also at operational level we are decentralizing it. We are delegating power to zones so that zones can actually take over, general managers can operate. Eventually, we want to also delegate that power further to DRMs at the division level. So all of that is going to really make the railways operate in a completely different paradigm shift than what it is today.
Right. Another interesting initiative. To meet the shortfall in wagons, you have now entered into some sort of an MOU, an arrangement with Coal India. So how is that going? And do we see these sort of innovative steps, Mr. Prabhu, which is what your tenure has been marked with? Sort of coming up with some out-of-the-box solution to vexing issues.
What is the choice? You tell me. Why should Coal India has money? They're lying over cash. They need this for their own, because that's a business. Without coal, without wagons, they cannot move the coal. Now, if I use their money, they benefit, we benefit. Why should we not do it? Why we should invest money into something which somebody else can do it? We rather use that money for doing something better. Therefore, what we are doing is very clearly, the idea is very clear. You have got money, you have a need. We have something else to offer because we have tracks, we know how to operate your wagons. We'll do that, you do your job, we'll do our job. It's good for both, good for the economy, good for the system.
On that note, let's slip into a short break. On the other side, there's much more with Mr. Prabhu. Stay tuned.